Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. If you clicked on this video, you're here for one reason, and you want to know what's going on with the #1 overall pick. Why is Caleb Williams struggling? Why is the Chicago Bears offense struggling? Today, I want to talk about it all, and I want to dive into the real, what's actually going on, because I'm seeing a lot of different narratives. I'm seeing a variety of things on social platforms, but today we got to get to the nitty and the gritty. We got so much to talk about. I don't want to waste too much time because we got a hot topic. Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears offense struggles once again despite a great defensive effort and a 19-13 loss versus the Houston Texans. What went on in this football game? Because I think defensively, there's a couple of guys that I want to shout out. I want to shout out Jalen Johnson, Gervon Dexter. A lot of people are counting on him to be that big-time guy, being a pass rusher off of the interior. I think he's bringing that for Matt Eberflus's defense. We still got Montez Sweat coming off of the edge. Daryl Taylor had a pretty solid game opposite Montez Sweat. Then you look at the second level, you got Tremaine, you got TJ Edwards making some plays. So I think defensively, we saw some guys flying around. Tyreek Stevenson had an up and down game, made some big time plays, had some plays against him. So we're just looking at that in his second year, trying to get better on the football field. But we're talking about the offense today. Caleb Williams on the day, 23 of 37, 174 yards, 2 interceptions, 7 sacks. Now, everything I've seen up to this point, and I want to add before we dive straight into it, I watched this game on replay. I had to catch up on some rest, so I didn't watch this one as it happened on Sunday night. I watched this one Monday morning prior to recording this video, so I kind of got a different feel of looking at it. I didn't watch it in real time. And seeing what happened in this football game, I don't think there's any way that I can get up here in front of the camera and say that this is all on Caleb Williams. A lot of things we have to talk about today. On the ground, Caleb Williams was also the leading rusher. 5 carries, 44 yards. DeAndre Swift, 14 carries, 18 yards. We're going to dive straight into that as well. In the air, DJ Moore, 6 receptions, 53 yards. Rome Odunze, 2 catches, 33 yards. Then you had DeAndre Carter and Cole Kmet. They chimed in, had some solid outputs through the air. Now, when we talk about this game, I think there's 3 things that I want to look at. I want to look at Caleb Williams, of course. He's the quarterback of this offense. Second thing I want to look at is the run game, or the lack thereof. Talking about on the ground and how this is putting more pressure on Caleb Williams than you want to see for a first-year rookie. Then I want to talk about the offensive line. From losses to penalties to a lack of communication up front. We're going to dive into all of that and talking about it and how it's not only affecting the run game, but it's affecting Caleb Williams as well. The offensive line is the crux of what you want this offense to be. If you want to have a solid offense, talk about a top 10 offense with DJ Moore. Keenan Allen was out this game, but when he comes back, you have your big 3. You got DJ, Keenan, Rome Odunze. None of that matters if the offensive line continues to play how they played last night. Now, I want to start from the beginning because I think the first half was extremely smooth for Caleb Williams. We saw a lot of the quick game being utilized. And I think when you take into account the environment, you're on the road versus the Houston Texans and it's Sunday Night Football. We know the crowd is going to be loud. I'm trying to hear through my helmet. I have to get the calls from Shane Waldron. A lot of things going on. We have to command the line of scrimmage, a lot of things and a lot of responsibility that we have when we go up to the line of scrimmage. Understanding the Miko Ryans, we're sending nickels, we're sending safeties. We got all these stunts and loops up front. I have to handle that if I'm Caleb Williams. Let me get into the quick game. Let's get some boots. Let's get some screens. Let's get some smokes outside on the perimeter. Let's do that. And I think early on, it was smooth. It was a very good game in the first half, in my opinion, from Caleb Williams. Then we talk about on the ground. Now, to look at how this game went in the first half, at the end of the first half, it was 10-16. The Chicago Bears were down by 6 points. And I think when we take into account what the run game was, it was non-existent through the first half and really through this entire game. And I think what we're seeing is, okay, is an offensive line understanding we have to get on the move. If we're pulling guards, if we're pulling tackles, if we're trying to get on the perimeter, our guys have to move. Let's get out in front. You're seeing Nate Davis, he's trying to pull, he's tripping up. You're seeing up front, we're trying to have people being moved off of the line of scrimmage. There's no movement on the line of scrimmage. I think the aggressiveness was not there last night. And I think when you talk about aggressiveness, not being able to create a new line of scrimmage and not being able to get your athletes out on the move. The Chicago Bears have some athletic offensive linemen, but you can't showcase that when you don't have great balance and you're not getting to the second level handling your assignment. So we saw that early on, and that puts more pressure on Caleb Williams. How many times can we say second and long, third and long, Caleb go make a play? And understanding the offensive line is struggling in pass pro. So now, okay, offensive line, we struggle in the run game. We're getting negative plays. DeAndre Swift is trying to run the ball. We're losing 1, we're losing 2, we're losing 3 yards on early downs. So now it's not just second and 8. It's not just third and 7. It's second and 11, third and 12, because we're getting these negative plays. We're trying to get out. When we're trying to get out on the perimeter, when we're trying to run the ball through the tackles. So I think looking at that, the run game has to be cleaned up, and I don't think it's all on DeAndre Swift. A part of this is on DeAndre Swift, but we look at the offensive line. There's not many places for DeAndre Swift to go. So now we get into pass protection, and I talk about what we saw from DeMeco Ryans. You know, you're going to get a lot of different things just because of how dynamic he is, kind of how he creates disguises, how he brings a lot of different things as a defensive mind. So you talk about, okay, Fadakasi, you talk about Jerry Hughes, Daniil Hunter, Will Anderson, all of these guys moving around. You got a lot of moving parts when you're Caleb Williams, understanding that at the line of scrimmage. So I think what Shane Waldron was trying to accomplish is he's trying to establish the run on the early downs, get Caleb Williams in the third and manageable. But once you saw that wasn't working, I didn't see an adjustment from Shane Waldron. So this is not only talking about the offensive line struggling, this is Shane Waldron sticking with this same game plan throughout the entirety of all 4 quarters. When we talk about Nate Davis, Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright, and Coleman Shelton, we talk about those 4 guys up front for the Chicago Bears. I think that was probably one of the worst games that I saw those guys play. I like Braxton Jones. I like Darnell Wright being the second-year guy at Tennessee. Nate Davis was their big free agent acquisition 2 years ago. Coleman Shelton, he's their center up front. And a lot of people said, we have to address the interior of this offensive line through the draft. Understanding, okay, you're not going to have a lot of picks, because you get Rome Odunze, you don't trade back, try to add more trade draft capital, and I like the move. I like getting Rome Odunze, understanding the talent that he is and what he will be. Then you go further down, okay, you get an edge player, you draft a punter. It's a lot of different things that you did, but you didn't address the interior of this offensive line. And now, can we say that's coming back to bite this football team? Even though it's early on, it's week 2, we can't overreact, but I'm just talking about what I'm seeing when I watch these football games. Then I think Tevin Jenkins was probably the only offensive lineman in this unit, which I could say played solid in this football game. And when we talk about what's going on, for one, there's penalties. We have Darnell Wright getting a false start. We have Nate Davis getting a false start. And Nate Davis, when I talk about Braxton Jones, when I talk about Shelton, when I talk about everybody up front, even Darnell Wright, Nate Davis had the worst game on this offensive line. He was losing one-on-ones. He couldn't recognize and pick up stunts. When we're talking about blitzes, he couldn't recognize and pick. Everything you talk about being protection one-on-one for an offensive lineman, that was non-existent in this football game. And Chicago Bears fans, football fans in general, it scratched Chicago Bears fans. If you watched this football game, you saw how the interior of the offensive line struggled. Your center and your right guard, and really all of your guards, your left and your right guard, they have to be in unison. We have to say, okay, I'm going to take this. I'm going to pass this off. I'm calling this out. This is who I have. Okay, if we have a hut, now we have to slide inside and let the furthest outside go, or we slide outside, depending on where we're at and where we're going to let the pressure come from. I don't think I saw any of that communication for the Chicago Bears offensive line in this game. Then we go to the second half, and I think as we start to see the pressure heat up, DeMeco Ryans understanding, okay, this Bears defense is coming out to play. These guys are getting after it. And like I said, I give my hats off to those guys. Even in a loss, we saw Matt Eberflus and his defense getting after it. Now, CJ Stroud is going to be CJ Stroud. Actually talking about what he went on today, 23 of 36, 260 yards, 1 touchdown. And I think even when they were getting pressure, he was still getting outside of the pocket, finding Nico Collins on the 3rd down, trying to get the ball to Stephon Diggs, just doing different things, being CJ Stroud. We know he's that top 10 quarterback. But when we talk about the Chicago Bears side of it, now we have to get to Caleb Williams and their interceptions. Now, the first interception that he threw, it got called back because you had a defensive holding. But I think when I look at that, that's a really tough throw to make. When you try to get the football to Rome Odunze down there on the left sideline, it's just a tough situation where what is the upside of making this throw, and is there any chance or possibility of making the throw? And when you throw a football like that, it has to be 50-50, or let's make it 75-25. Either Rome Odunze comes down with this football, or nobody comes down with the football. I think he throws that, and there's not a 50-50. We're looking at that throw, and there's no possibility of Rome Odunze catching that football. So I think that's a tough throw to make. I have to talk about Caleb Williams right there, understanding when to dial it back sometimes in that situation. Now, I think as for Caleb, when looking at it, understanding how the defense was playing at the same time, he probably said, okay, we have to make a play somehow. Because for a long stretch in this game, it was 10-16. And when we're looking at it, if I can just get that one score, I can get us a lot closer in this football game. And I think my defense can still hold up. So now that's kind of in the back of his mind as well. The run game isn't clicking. Now we're starting to force the football down the field. And like I said, just more on the offensive line. Nate Davis, Braxton Jones struggling in that second half. But when Caleb Williams throws his first official pick at the end of the third quarter, I think looking at that, now for me, I think it was a miscommunication between him and DJ Moore. Because if you look at that route, okay, now DJ Moore comes off of the line. He wins immediately inside versus Derek Stingley. And I think what Caleb Williams was trying to do is understanding, if we have this safety over the top, because there was a safety coming down, he was over the top of the route. Now I'm trying to get to that back shoulder because I want to get you the football before Derek Stingley can recover, or I want to get into a situation where he's trying to get back in phase and now we're getting a pass interference. Those are things that I think, as far as DJ Moore and Caleb Williams, I don't think their chemistry is all the way there yet. Because even with DJ Moore having 6 catches for 53 yards, I think this could have been an even bigger game. So just looking at things like that, I think trying to get that communication a little more. Sometimes it's saying, okay, maybe you have this 25-yard route. Let's sit it down at 17. Let me hit you on the back shoulder because you won inside. So now Derek Stingley's trying to catch up. If you just get on this back shoulder, boom, he's trying to catch up. So now he's already out of phase. This is a good situation for us to hit him back shoulder. I think that's what Caleb Williams was seeing. Now, it could have been something completely different, but just what I saw during this game, I think that's what he tried to do. And then he underthrew it a little bit. Now, also DJ Moore, because I don't think they were on the same page, he drifted a little bit on him. So you saw him go a little bit to the outside, got pushed out a little bit. Derek Stingley has great ball skills. He's coming down with that 10 times out of 10. So that's the first pick. Then I think some other things when I talk about the second interception, that's a throw that you can't make. And I think before he threw the interception, you see great play extension. You see the pocket presence, getting on the move, getting outside. Daniil Hunter had him on a sack. He missed the sack, so he evades that. And then he throws it into an area with 3 Houston Texans defenders. That's a tough one, Caleb. Now, I see possibly what he thought if he got the football over Kamari Lassiter. Now you're trying to get Cole Kmet. But how tough of a throw is that to make realistically? And this is why I come back to it and say, Caleb, what is the upside of this throw? Understand how your defense is playing. Understand what's going on, how to manage the game right here in this situation. And I think the playmaker in Caleb, having the elite arm that he does have, he believes he can make a throw like that. I think it was a tough one. You got to dial it back sometimes. 3 defenders in the area. It's going to be really tough to get that football over Kamari Lassiter, really any corner. And Kamari Lassiter isn't the biggest corner, but you saw him, he got up in the air, he came down with that one big time interception for Kamari Lassiter. And then I think one thing I want to talk about, just in the overall sense for the Chicago Bears in this game, effort. The effort seemed to be non-existent. And you talk about a team that can't run the football. You talk about a team with all of these penalties, from the false starts to the holding calls to everything going on. I think effort. How dialed in is this football team? How locked in are you offensively for this thing to even be executed and for it to run smoothly? There were a couple of players where even DJ Moore, I said he let up on that route sometimes. I said, okay, in the backfield, DeAndre Swift, okay, maybe he didn't run as hard as he could have right there. When we're looking at offensive line, you know what? The effort wasn't fully there on that play. So just things like that, where not questioning character, but I think in a situation like that, when things aren't going your way, that's going to tell me a lot about this football team. That's going to tell me who they really are. But when we talk about, okay, and we look at this and say, okay, what is Caleb Williams doing? How much of this is on Caleb? And I look at some of these plays, and it's like one play where I want to talk about 2nd and 4. It was down late in the fourth quarter, and there's a play where he has a blitzer right in his B gap. He looks him dead in the eyes, and then he looks back to the front side. When you had a bubble route right there on the play side, you could have threw the football. Now you see the blitzer. You say, okay, let's go back to the play. Let's go back to the boundary, and then we get an intentional grounding call. So it's just things like that where I say, you know what? Some of this is Caleb Williams understanding, okay, I got to be a game manager right now. And I think for this team, with the defense that they have, until things start to get into a rhythm, until they start to get to where, okay, we're getting 20 points consistently, we're getting 30 points consistently, let's try to stay within the flow of the game. Let's understand the flow of the game, and let's play to what Matt Eberflus's defense can do. I think as a defensive-minded head coach, and maybe this isn't the best situation for Caleb Williams right now, but I think if he understands now, I have to manage the game sometimes. And really for Shane Waldron, the running game, they're going to have to help Caleb. The offensive line, they're going to have to help Caleb. But there are some things that he has to work on as well to where, okay, now we're starting to click. Now we're getting into more of a rhythm. We're taking care of the football. We're not taking some of these sacks that we don't have to take. We're getting rid of the football. We're not taking as many hits. So just things like that. And then, like I said, once you get the offensive line into a rhythm, once you get the run game going, for me personally, when I'm looking at what's going on with this offensive line, is it time to, okay, say maybe let's look at our depth. Let's shift some of these things up because I think what we're seeing right now is extremely subpar, especially on the interior of the offensive line. And when you look at Braxton Jones, he had his hands full with Will Anderson in this football game. And then on the inside, you talk about Fadakasi, you talk about those guys. And then when they're running these stunts and loops, where's the communication? A lot of things going on. But I think that is the real problem. Just on all three levels, nothing is smooth right now for the Chicago Bears. And I know there's going to be a lot of it's all on Caleb Williams. Yes, some of it is on Caleb Williams, but it's not all on him because Shane Waldron, what are we doing? Where are our adjustments? Where's our creativity in the run game? Where's our creativity as a play caller? And then we talk about the offensive line. I've got on them a lot in this video, but I just want to know what you think down below. That's just what I saw in this football game. And I think for as talented as this football team is, for what Ryan Poles has done, it's unacceptable. I want to see this be a good football team. I think they're a ways away right now, but you have all of the talent, and it's only week 2, so there's a lot of work to be put in and a lot of time for this to be turned around, for Caleb Williams to have a big year, and the Chicago Bears is an entire team. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as always. That's going to do it for today, and now, yeah.